All right. Hello, everyone.
Can I do
Welcome.
it too?
Welcome to our weekly meeting of the American River College Sociology Club and Progressive Democrats Club. Very excited today to have two guest speakers who are going to be speaking to us about their experiences as both artists and activists in the larger kind of struggle for racial justice. And we're really fortunate today to have folks coming to this conversation from different regional and different generational perspectives. And I think there's going to be a lot of really interesting conversations today. So maybe we can just go through really quickly, and everyone, all the club members can share just your name, and we can just do that really quickly, and then we can turn things over to our guest speakers to introduce themselves more fully. I'm just going to call on folks for time purposes because I have you on my screen here. So Alexis, go ahead. Actually, let's do your name and your favorite kind of art, maybe.
My name is Alexis, and my favorite kind of art is actually dance. I'm also a dance major as well as a psych and social major.
Very cool, thank you. Nikel.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Hey, my name is Nikel, and my favorite kind of art I would say is either ceramic art, because I used to do ceramics, or music, because I love music. I feel like that's very art. I don't know, I think it's really pretty, so.
Very cool, thank you. Professor Kawamoto.
Wow, gosh. I am Professor Kawamoto, one of the other co-advisors, and I guess I'm a big fan of stringed music. I'm looking at Jeff's guitars in the background, and I'm jealous. So, like that.
Speaking of Jeff, go ahead.
My name's Jeff. My favorite type of art is definitely music. So you could see I've been playing guitar for most of my life. So yeah.
Very cool. Malik.
So guys, my name is Malik. Yeah, music is my favorite art, most definitely.
Is there a type of music, Malik, that you're especially interested in?
You know, of course, R&B, hip hop, everything like. But I like all, of course. You know, it's all good.
Cool, thank you. Ryle.
Somewhat obviously, my name is Ryle, and my favorite art, probably music.
Is there a particular genre?
All music.
Okay, very cool. Eric, welcome. Good to see you.
I'm excited to be here. My name's Eric. I guess music is probably my favorite art. I really do like drawing and like art. We're like
Visual
this
art.
type of art. Yeah, visual art. There you go.
Very cool. Is that your work in the background or somebody else?
No, it's a collage of different people's. My girlfriend's siblings. This is her wall.
Very cool. Lori, you're next up if you're there.
I am.
Okay.
I am here. I am here. You see my ceiling. I have my phone on my lap.
That's okay.
I had to eat because I took a pill and you have to eat afterwards. So that's why I had my visual off. Lori Jones, and I would say theater and film.
All right. Very cool. Thank you, Lori. Alex, I got you next.
Hi, my name is Alex. And I guess my favorite would be visual art. I do a lot of like pencil and charcoal drawing and also some painting.
All right. Thank you. Molly, I see you up next.
Hi, I'm Molly. And I probably would have to say music would be my favorite art.
Is there a preferred genre or type of music, Molly? Or artist?
Actually, I find myself listening to a lot of country music.
All right. Very cool. Samuel, I got you up next.
I'm sorry, I just came in here. What are we doing?
Oh, your name and your preferred kind of art.
Oh, my name is Samuel. I am a big fan of fractal art. I've always been obsessed with fractals. One of my favorite artists is Alex Gray. I don't know if any of you've heard of Alex Gray. He did the album cover for Tool. I don't know if you guys heard of Tool.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe
Yeah.
fractal art to people who don't know?
It's one of my kind of like that.
Okay.
It looks a lot like sacred geometry. If you've ever heard of sacred geometry, or just it's very geometric.
Cool. Very cool. Thank you, Samuel. Let me see. Taylor, I got you up next.
Hi, my name is Taylor McKenzie. I guess my favorite type of art would be painting. As of right now, I can't say favorite because I love all different types of art, but I would say as of right now, painting.
Very cool. Thank you. And Athanasia, I've got you up last. Oh, Athanasia is using the chat. She says, "Hi, everyone. I'm on mute and off camera because I'm at the hospital and it's really loud. But music, especially theater, is my favorite art. It really soothes my soul." Thank you, Athanasia. Hope everything's okay. Let me know if I can help you out at all after this. With that said, I would love our two guests, Ruthie Mae Harris and Grace, to take the stage for a little bit. Maybe share a little bit about your personal history, your personal story, and when and how art and activism kind of come in for you. So we'll go with Ruthie first. I've got you first on my screen today. And feel free to talk as long as you want to. And then we'll turn it over to Grace to hear her story as well.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, as you know, my name is Ruthie Harris. I'm a Southern girl. I'm from Albany, Georgia. I am the 7th of 8 children born to the Reverend and Mrs. I.A. Harris. Alexis is my niece. I became involved. I love music. I sing gospel, rhythm and blues, mostly gospel now that I'm at the age of 80. I became involved in the civil rights movement in 1961. After completing 1 year of college at Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida, I came home for the summer and the Albany movement had begun. And I joined the Albany movement as a freedom singer. And during the Albany movement, we did voter registration drives, picketing, and marches. As a part of the voter registration drive, we did canvassing on people's homes, and I came upon a young man at the age of 90 who never was a registered voter, could not write his name. I taught this young man to write his name. Upon him learning to write his name, I carried him down to become a registered voter. So that was one of the highlights of my working in voter registration. Singing during the mass meetings, I became one of the original freedom singers. This group was organized during the Albany movement. There were 4 of us: Charles Neblett, Cordell Reagan, Bernice Johnson, Reagan, and yours truly. We were organized for the purpose of raising funds for the SNCC, Student Nonviolence Coordinating Committee. This group traveled 50,000 plus miles in 9 months, telling the story of the civil rights movement through song. We sang it every January that we could. Um, we were well liked by everyone. By the way, I've been arrested. I was arrested for uh, demonstrating, and I spent a total of 14 days in jail. And while I was in jail, the chief of police, who was Laura Pritchett, and the mayor, who was Mayor Kelly, there was a song that was written, came out of the Albany movement called "Oh Pritchett, Oh Kelly." And when Pritchett heard us sing this song, so when I was arrested, he would holler back and say, "Hey, Rutha, sing that song about me and Kelly." So I don't know whether he liked my singing or he was just picking on me. But every time he asked me to sing, I would sing it. So I'll do a little bit of that to let you know what I'm talking about. It says, "Oh, Pritchard, oh, Kelly, oh, Pritchard, open themselves. Oh, Pritchard, oh, Kelly. Oh, Pritchard, open themselves. Can't you hear God's children crying for freedom? Hear God's children praying in jail. Can't you hear God's children? You know they are suffering. Hear God's children praying in jail." So songs of the movement were taken from spirituals, gospels, rhythm and blues. The songs, whatever the occasion was, there was a song. There's a song called "I Woke Up This Morning with My Mind Stayed on Freedom." It was taken from a gospel song, "I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Jesus." I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. So when you're in a march, there's a song called "I Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around." Say, "I ain't gonna let Chief Pritchett turn me around. I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around. Turn me around, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land." So if you want to get a march started, start singing and the people will follow. I don't know. Let's see. There are some sorrow songs that came out of the movement. "Wade in the Water." Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, who's at yonder dressed in red? God's gonna trouble the water. Well, it looks like the children that Martin led. God's gonna trouble the water. Wow. Right, I'll stop right there.
Ruth, on behalf of everybody, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Grace, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us your story about coming to art and activism at the same time.
Ooh, let me just say that took me back, child. Oh Lord, I felt like my granny was still here. I
Hey,
love
girl.
playing in the water, man.
Yeah, I feel you,
Okay.
baby.
Before I kind of begin with my story, I'm just I don't know if a representative or somebody a part of the club kind of wants to maybe express maybe one thing that you guys really are looking to pull from hearing our experience to kind of help me tailor what parts of my story I share with you.
I think it's to open up at least just like a story about yourself personally and how you came to art, the kind of art that you you connect with the most and participate in the most, and how you came into activism and the kind of issues that are important to you, and how eventually, hopefully today, we'll talk about these two strains of art and activism and how they come to be kind of wrapped up together and complementary to each other.
Got you. Yeah, in that regard, yeah, I definitely think that art is activism in a sense. And for me, it was actually through the experience of a police brutality that triggered me to write one of my first spoken word poems. I had used writing in my adolescence as a kind of a form of healing. And it kind of fell off when I kind of got into high school. And when I graduated at about 18 years old, um, one of the most traumatizing experiences of my life triggered me to get back to how I was going to express what I had just experienced. And when this happened to me, it was honestly in the midst of a lot of the controversy of police brutality in the season that happened to me was extremely heightened. And so I was feeling overwhelmed, and just leaving public school, I wasn't given the true conceptual knowledge to really understand what it was that I was experiencing. And so I began this journey of spoken word poetry. And it led me to my journey into protesting. I was so enraged by my experience, and it makes me think of the quote that says, justice will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are. And to think that it took me to have to experience how simply being Black in the wrong place at the wrong time, in the wrong skin, can happen to any of us, and that, and so this really catapulted my activism. After that experience, I began writing more poems, not only about my experience, but about the experiences of other deaths. One in particular that drew close to home for me was the death of a young lady named Nia Wilson. She was a young Black woman who was stabbed to death at MacArthur BART station in Oakland, California, by a white man. And it was really triggering for me because I was actually a stop away when it happened. And I remember my frustration on the BART train of like, oh my God, why is the BART train stopped? And that night when I had got home and I had realized what had hindered my BART ride, it was extremely scary for me because I was supposed to be getting off at MacArthur BART station, and I was running late. So had I been on time, I could have been Nia Wilson. And so through my poetry, I give light to these experiences, so that you know, through artistry, we never really die, right? And that's how I think about the power of artistry intertwined with activism, and how I use my activism. I actually go ahead and do that poem for you guys. I wrote a poem for Nia Wilson, and it's kind of intertwined. It's crazy because I think a lot of times when you're in the realms of activism, you know, a lot of people will reach out to me and, you know, send me things. Did you see this, or did you hear about this? You know what I mean? And a lot of times, honestly, I don't particularly engage in the propaganda of Black deaths, simply because it's a struggle that is not a new struggle, right? I can simply think about Emmett Till to remind me of what's going on and to make connections to Breonna Taylor, right? So it's like I don't tend to continue to remind myself of the trauma. I root myself in my solution to what I see as what, you know, I'm called to do for my part. And so in that, there's a series on Netflix called When They See Us, and it depicts the tragic incident of what happened to 5 young men who are called the Central Park Five, which they were falsely accused of the rape of a white woman. And a lot of people are like, "Yo, did you see this? Did you see this?" And I watched one episode of it, and that I have not finished the series. It was just too much. And so just with that one episode, and interwoven with the feelings I had wrapped around Nia Wilson, I wrote this poem called When They See Us. And this is the poem. You see, I've known long before Netflix originals how they feel when they see us. The Central Park Five is Emmett Till plus 4. Shh. Listen. To the power of a white woman's cry, be quiet. Can you hear the agony of Black mothers drowning in this ocean of white privilege, yet we keep swimming? For we are well accustomed to seas and slave ships rooted in muddy waters, and injustice runs through our veins. Black boys fill prison cells like our ancestors filled plantations. Shackles have been replaced with solitary. He is an animal, so we shall treat him as such. You see, when they see us, you ought not be doing nothing wrong, like be Black in the wrong place, in the wrong time, in the wrong skin. And they say 2 wrongs don't make a right, but 1 wrong left turn and a missing blinker will leave you as a hashtag. Rest in peace to Sandra Bland. You see, when they see us, make sure your hoodie is down, hands are up, Skittles are visible, toy guns or weapons too. He is a threat. Shoot, aim to kill, and rip the innocence away from any Black boy who fits the description. But see, I don't know about y'all, but lately I've been longing for the day that we fight back more than we tweet out. I've been trying to figure out when hashtags became the new headstones, or how we have become so accustomed to being posted on Wednesday and forgotten by Friday. And which day was it that the Klansmen felt safe enough to take off their masks? I've been watching the past repeat itself, like how BART stations have replaced plantations, the white man's new hunting ground, and the sound of Nia Wilson and Oscar Grant taking their last breath lets me know that Black bodies are still being hunted like prey. Deja vu, same shit, different day, so I've been wondering how much a Black body in a hearse is worth. Trick question, our souls have no price, because hashtags will no longer suffice, like preachers who pray for peace and posters of rest and peace. That shit is watered down. They must know that there is a cost for killing our queens, so if they ever kill me, fuck a protest. No justice, no peace will no longer ride. I do not want you chanting to fight genocide, and the only thing I pray for is that you revolt more than you record. Do not post my death on the gram and then continue on with your daily program. And if Fox News posts a picture of me with a bottle of heme, I just pray, remember me as a queen. Remember that Malcolm X said by any means, and Dr. King had a dream, and then speak my name into existence until the bitter taste of injustice stains your tongue. And to the sound of Black mothers mourning Black babies rings through your eardrums like the Congo drums my ancestors used to play on the soil they ripped us from. And if you record my son's death or watch my daughter take her last breath, just know that you are as guilty as the press that decides which bodies are newsworthy.
I love that.
Woo. Wow.
Thank you. So
Where can we get that? Is it available?
I am fairly active on my Instagram. I do have this poem actually on YouTube. I actually performed this poem in particular. I had actually went to the BART station where Neil Wilson was killed, and I performed this poem on the BART station, and actually someone had recorded it, and it actually went viral via Facebook, but that is on YouTube. I will put both my YouTube and my Instagram in the chat. If you would like to keep up with different things, I talk a lot just about my perspectives in regards to activism, to an array of topics of healing and things like that throughout my social media. And yeah, so through my, I have a motto where I say, turn pain into passion. And so for me, I use my painful experiences to drive my purpose. So, and I do that, and I'm able to deliver the poems in a way in conviction because of that pain. And so when I stumbled upon my gift of performing spoken word, I went to my first open mic poem in 2013. And I assure you, I did not sound like how I just sounded. I was meek, timid, no conviction in my voice, scared, shaking, trembling, reading out of my notebook. And yet still, I kind of got this approval that to help me find my voice. And I think that's one of the hardest part of activism in any capacity, is finding where your voice is in the fight for justice. So that's my experience. Yeah.
Thank you, Grace. Just that line, that through line of Emmett Till all the way up to today. I think it binds together the two artists, two activists, two souls we have in the room with us tonight or today. I have a whole bunch of questions that I'm gonna wait on. I want to open up to the membership of the clubs. Are there any questions that you'd like to pose, either asking through the chat or through the video, to both of our esteemed presenters?
Maybe just, sorry, my dog's in the way. I don't remember a big one would be like the March on Washington and how that came about and your experience in that.
How did I get to the March on Washington? Well, we were out in California, and we were asked to come to sing at the March on Washington. And Harry Belafonte had chartered a plane And he asked us to ride the plane. So we rode the plane to the March on Washington. And that's how we got to the March on Washington. And upon our arriving there, we waited in the backstage until our time to sing. And you can catch the song We Shall Not Be Moved on YouTube. And of course, you can catch me on YouTube. Just Google Ruthie Mae Harris.
I also have a question for
Nicole.
Ruthie.
Okay.
So I would love to hear your perspective of how how pretty much like activism back in your day versus like right now, how it is either different or similar to one another. I feel like obviously we're fighting for somewhat same justices, but at the same time they're quite different considering you were in like the actual civil rights movement. So how do you feel about like the protests going on now? Like how do they compare?
Well, during our time, we sang a lot, and we were nonviolent. And of course, Black Lives Matter. I didn't hear many songs. And personally, without songs, there wouldn't have been a movement for us if we didn't have songs. Because the songs of the civil rights movement helped us from being afraid. If you're walking down the street and you see this policeman and he tell you if you keep walking that you're going to be arrested, so you start singing a song. And sometimes the police will drop his billy club. But you're singing and you know you haven't done anything wrong and you're not going to stop because you have a purpose. And for today, I am so proud of the young people for today. It's a different group of people. They didn't know anything about nonviolence because they hadn't been taught nonviolence. So that's the difference between our marches and their marches. And the marches of today were, some of the people were people who did the violence were those people who were sent there to do the violence.
All right, thank you. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Grace, you go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add to that just to get some perspective of being an activist in this time in my analysis of what I saw in the protests of our generation. It makes me think about a quote my professor, my first semester. I graduated from ARC, whoop, whoop, whoop. I'm now at Davis, and my first semester, I'm in my education class, a professor put on the board, no history, no self. No history, no self. The first one is N-O, no history, no self. The second one is no history, no self, K-N-O-W. And this has stuck with me, and it's something that I had my peers regurgitating when I was out in the protest. And what I've seen from our generation is that because we lack the true historical knowledge of what our ancestors and past civil rights leaders did to cultivate change, we are in ways trying to imitate that without understanding the driving forces that catapulted that change, right? For example, when I look at our generation, the unfortunate reality is that because we do not have the history, we do not truly possess the endurance necessary to combat the injustices that we continue to see. And in that way, we don't understand that the organization of protest during the civil rights movement was merely a ground to continue organization, right? And so what I've seen in our protests is an immense amount of disorganization. There's no unity, right? And within that, we're failing to realize the importance of things like the bus boycott protest and why that was so successful. And when we talk about actions like defunding the police, those are synonymous to what it means to possess the endurance to combat the injustices we see. That was a matter of an entire community deciding to rid themselves of their daily conveniences in order to bring about a change that was bigger than our conveniences, right? So when we think about the things that fund the police, the unfortunate reality is that it's many of the things that we depend on a daily basis and thus are not willing to let go of. So when we go out into these protests, we're fighting. And so one of the things I say, and I urge people to understand when I'm in the protest, and is that, yes, this is good, but what I see is that many of us will exhaust ourselves and not be doing anything when we leave the protest. It's what we do when we leave the protest that helps us to really combat this change. And what that means is, for our generation, I see there's no guidance, right? And so we have fictionalized our leaders so much that we don't realize that we are them. And so in that capacity, because the struggles are not as flamboyant as they were in the civil rights movement, right? And racism is more disguised. Our fight is in the same way a little bit more watered down, right? Until we see things like Breonna Taylor and George Floyd in the media that remind us that, oh my God, racism still exists, right? And then we go out and we're outraged, and and so in this capacity, and thinking about, what Ruthie Harris said, is that rooting ourselves in the understanding that the revolution starts within us, right? And we cannot change anything in the outer capacity until we first understand how we got here, right? And so I definitely think that's a strong link of what I've seen in the difference of our generation. There's a lot of lack of guidance. I had a lot of people come up to me in my leadership in the protest and ask me, what can I do? And often I will say, only you know best what you can do. And even in multiple capacities with just finding that allyship too. I had a lot of questions, from white people who, appreciated it and, were asking what they can do. And, one thing I told them is, if you have to be willing to sacrifice your privilege for this fight, you know what I mean? And that's a bridging thing I see too, right? When we look back at the civil rights movement and the allyship that was there from, white protesters that were joining the fight of justice, they were willing to, if the person next to them was beaten, it was an intertwined struggle, right? It wasn't like, oh, okay, I'm with you, but I'm not all the way with you. You know what I mean? And there's there's a many intersectionalities that have intentionally affected my generation's ability to unite in the same way that we see in the civil rights movement. And that is all very intentional. And I think that's the whole point. They did not want to see any more movements like Black Panther or, Dr. King, you know what I mean? And so the ways in which they dismantled that, being in the realms of the protest today, are very apparent.
Great. I know Professor Saka wanted me to cover, but he's back. So, and I do want to just basically keep it going. And other stuff from students. Anybody? Other questions, comments?
Well, I went to the protests as well. That's actually where I met Grace, just because she was, I feel like I just connected to her because she definitely wanted to help instead of just going there saying like, oh, F the cop, F12. That's what a lot of people were just in the street saying, which realistically, I mean, what does that do? You know what I mean? Like, what is that realistically doing? So I saw that she actually had like a vision board, a vision plan, and things like that, which is what kind of made me want to like, you know, connect with her, because I really was trying to be a part of like community more and things like that in Sacramento. And yeah, kind of bouncing off of just like my experiences with the protests and stuff. And in general, like I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. I grew up in Roseville. Like I went to school out there at least. And so obviously like last summer when in the peak of the like protests and things like that, I would have a lot of people on Instagram DMing me like, what should I do? What should I do? And stuff like that, which was great. But again, I kind of had to like bounce off of what Grace was saying to kind of like let them know, like, you know what you should do, you know, like do things that are practical, do things that are fiscal. I know a lot of like the bus boycott, I know that really impacted money, you know, money situation. So you know, telling people like buy from Black businesses or try to, you know what I mean, kind of use your money to your advantage and kind of organize things that are bigger than, like Grace was saying, bigger than our daily conveniences and stuff like that. So just a little comment.
Cool. Any response from our guests? We want to especially highlight you. We're running short on time, and we want to make sure our guests get a chance to say all they want to say.
I have a question for the guests, if we could. I think in my mind, protest and art are both, they're all kind of audience driven. Like you can't talk about art or protest without having an audience. There has to be an audience for there to be protest or art. And I'm wondering in both of your experiences, how you imagine the audience, who the audience is, like what the purpose of your art or your protest was, right? So I can imagine some art, Grace, your comment earlier about turning to art as a personal kind of a endeavor, right? That you do it for yourself, right? It can play that role, but it can also play this kind of like public facing role where you're trying to like inspire people to think a certain way or act a certain way. And I'm wondering in both your experiences, Ruthie and Grace, how you've imagined the audience, who the audience was, and what you wanted them to either feel or walk away from your art with.
Well, during the civil rights movement and during the mass meetings, the people in the audience, we would sing songs. If we were to have a march the following day, we would sing a song. And we would get them involved to make sure that they were going to leave the mass meeting to march. And we would sing a song. And that would get them riled up. And that's how we did during the civil rights movement. And I want to say that if you don't have anything worth dying for, there's no reason to be living. And that's how I felt when I became involved during the civil rights movement. That was my passion. I wanted to be free. And of course, the only way I knew that I would feel that I was free was that I had to participate. Freedom is not free. Freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. Oh Lord, we've been struggling so long. We must be free. We must be free. We're still fighting for the right to vote. And the only way that we will be free is that legislations are passed. Thank you.
Excuse me. Uh, Sorry, I was taking that in. It was who was my audience? Mm, um, I mean, typically when I write these poems, I mean, my audience is really to pull at the heartstrings of anybody willing to listen. Just to kind of paint this picture and kind of bring into fruition things I feel like we tend to forget about. But could you articulate the question one more time?
I was wondering how you imagine your audience in your both your art and your activism, knowing that there's probably a variety, right? Like some poems you write might be targeting certain kinds of people who maybe agree with you. Other kinds of poems might be reaching out to people maybe who are, I don't know, neutral or oppositional even to you, with different kinds of, outcomes, desired outcomes or imagined outcomes, sentiments you want to convey, arguments you want to make to folks, experiences you want to share. I'm just wondering, like, to what extent the audience shapes your art and your performance and that whole process.
I think for me, when I think about what my audience is and what I kind of want to convey to my audience, I think about what also kind of triggered me to spoken word is the exposure to spoken word. And I remember a young lady, I remember when I went to my first spoken word event, and I had never seen anything like it before. And the way that she brought together all of these ideas and gave me chills and goosebumps and just really evoked this emotion with me. I remember clear as day leaving that event that day and saying to myself, I need to be able to speak in a way that gives people chills. And so and so intertwining that with the protest, that's my audience is my audience is everybody, honestly, but that's what drives the way I think about my audience is what I wanted to feel when I was in the audience and what I want to convey to the audience through what I experienced. And so that's how I think about when I write. I think about, are they gonna feel this? I need you to feel this, you know what I mean? And similar into the way, that Rutha and the power of the music, you know what I mean? It brings chills just thinking about, I wish I could sing, I would try and imitate it, but I'm not gonna do that to y'all. But in the same way, that's how I think about really trying to draw in on those heartstrings.
Thank you. Other folks, any other questions or comments?
I had sent in some questions. I had to go look them up again. I'm 70, so I've been around, a little bit too, but I'm white and was raised in a white bubble. So I think, at least for me, we were sort of, the education wasn't there, and we were naive because we kept thinking things were getting better, and then like with Trump sort of dismantling the Voter Rights Act, I'm just wondering how people feel about that, and also about if they feel it's helpful to have a Black vice president, albeit a former prosecutor.
I'm sorry, can you say that last part again? It kind of glitched.
The first part was about the Voter Rights Act being dismantled, and the second part was how it feels for you to have a Black vice president, even though she's I believe a former prosecutor.
I think that's actually a bit of a layered question, because I mean, yeah, I think having a Black vice president, in many ways trumps that. However, I mean, there are some, debates that can be made in regards to her, previous career choices. But I think looking at it from the context of, the civil rights, and just, thinking about the point of those marches, and in that way looking at Kamala as what Dr. King dreamed could never be real, I think is, in the capacity that I try to tend to look at it, because there's a lot of, divisiveness already within Black community, and all of these things. So yeah, I think that's kind of a layered question. In my opinion, I've definitely, there's definitely been, like, the things that she's done about, like being a part of, a vessel in, mass incarceration in some capacity, in the ways that she prosecuted. But yeah, I think it's a layered question, and I think I would go into a really kind of unraveled lecture in trying to answer that question. So I'm gonna tiptoe on that one.
My comment on that, it's been a long time, and it should have been before now. We can, as Blacks, be anything, and we can do anything we want to. It was a long time coming.
Actually, Lori, your question made me think of something also, that Rutha, as you're talking to us right now at, ground zero of organizing, right? As we're thinking about Stacey Abrams and the incredible statewide, regional-wide organizing that took place through her work and her, other people's work, from the Black community.
Right.
Can you talk, have you had any engagement with organizing efforts in Georgia from this last this last election?
Well, I'm 80 years old now, and because of the pandemic, I'm in. I don't go out anymore, but had I been able to go, I would have. I did donate. Uh-oh, I forgot. I'm muted.
Oh, no, you're all good.
Why didn't you remind me I was muted?
You're all good. That all came through okay. You're good.
Oh, you heard me?
Yeah, you're all good.
Oh, okay.
All right, I'm looking at the time, and we have about 5 minutes left. I want to make sure anybody who's been sitting on a question or a comment gets to share it.
I just want to thank you guys for coming out, the guest speakers. Honestly, this was definitely a treat. Hearing you sing, Rutha, that really gave me the chills. Hearing your poem, Grace, made me tear up. Definitely. I think you made a really good point about singing, Rutha, especially with the fact that I'm definitely an advocate and I like to go to protests and things like that just because I'm an able-bodied to do so.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, I'm not the best singer, but
all right.
I can... I can definitely try to start singing more, because I feel like that is a really good point. If we can incorporate more art into activism in general, I feel like it could spread a lot easier. Hearing you sing "Wade in the Water" really touched me. So
thank you.
Really made me feel for my ancestors and whatnot. So I really appreciate you guys both coming out. I really do.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for having me.
Indeed. Yeah, on behalf of both clubs, thank you, Grace. Thank you, Rutha. Yeah, I really usually we have some kind of token of thanks that we share, like some kind of like, coffee mug from the bookstore or something. But yeah, I'd like to actually reach out to you both offline or through email here after this and see. I'm going to make a donation in both of your names to an organization that you all would like that money to go to. So I'll reach out to you individually after this, and we'll get that squared away as a token of our thanks for your time.
Okay.
Your
All
talent.
right. Thank you so much.
All right. So everyone, please join me in a round of applause for our awesome panel today.
I was gonna also say, that you're gonna did already pass that you're gonna be on TV, right? PBS.
I'm going to be on PBS tonight at 9 p.m. The Black Church. I think I'm on tonight, but you need to watch tonight and tomorrow night at 9 o'clock on PBS.
All right, we'll check that out.
Thank you, Alexis.
Got the plug, got you.
Yeah. The street team. All right, y'all. Stay safe. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
All right, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
So are we meeting after? Do we have some kind of meeting after?
I'll hang out. Yes.
Oh, is it officers or what?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, we can. You guys want to.
Hang out, buddy.
Have a good day.
That was such a good meeting. That went very well.
You can do for a bit.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Absolutely. Really gave me the chills.
Yeah, living history.
Yeah,
wow. And we have it recorded. We're still recording.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now.